The Unhappy Hour on the new AmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM Radio Network, the new AmericanMedia.com. My name's Brian Engelman. I am your host. Thank you for joining us for half a decade. One of our earliest guests and one of our favorite people when it comes to the world of Cleveland sports is John Telich, 11-time Emmy award-winning sportscaster from Fox 8 Cleveland. He's been on the program before, and we're going to get him on the program again. So without delay, let's go right to John. We're going to do Cleveland Indians preview and a Cavaliers postseason preview.
What's happening?
John, welcome back to the program. You're live, sir. How you doing today?
I'm fine. How about yourself?
Man, it's got to be anticlimactic for you with the Cleveland Indians home snow opener getting weathered out. I mean, that's pretty anticlimactic, isn't it?
Well, you guys know the history. We had something happen in '07.
Yeah.
And you got an opener pretty much every other year at your place, and so you're going to have something happen probably once every 10 years. Given the the dice that you roll early April in Northeast Ohio is just how it goes, and you can't plan on it. I mean, the Indians could have their opener like March 3rd, at Progressive Field, and people would have been blown away because it was real nice. We had a real nice winter, but then you get into early April, and it's still kind of a catch-22 as to what you're going to get that day. So
yeah, and I've been
that's
seeing.
The way it goes.
Yeah, anticlimactic, and but then again, like you don't get 11 Emmys for sportscasting by accident. This ain't your first rodeo. You got the perspective to kind of calm down everybody. This happens all the time. But there is a movement right now. People are saying you should not be playing early games in certain demographic regions. Front load them pretty heavy in the Californias and the Floridas.
Right.
And, do you think there's any merit to some of that?
Well, there is some merit to it, and it always seems to get tossed out for conversation in selected cities at this time of the year, just about every year. The Buzzards coming to Hinckley each year.
Of course, yeah.
It's a big deal. And well, the real deal with the Buzzards in Hinckley, it's not like when they come there. It's like when the people in Hinckley say they're going to be there, and they'll say, when do you want to be there? Okay, well, let's have them there March 15th. Okay, fine. And here, the Buzzards are here. And so, every year you can bet on some kind of a conversation in a northern climate where the people are going to say, oh, do we have to do this every year? Why do they start here? And why can't they start in California? And why can't, and those are all valid points, but we've continued to have that same conversation for years and years, and baseball they have so many things on their plate to make the schedule that they just can't cater to, okay, let's make sure these northern teams don't get to their places until, the third week of April, and that way, they start most of their schedule on the road. So you kind of hear that just about every year, but that's just the way it goes.
And who's to say you don't put them in Florida and then you get the rainy spell as well? I mean, you can't really predict the weather. So, it's neither here nor there. The season has started, except for us, of course. The snow opener got to us. I want to jump right to a question from my buddy Rob Troutman. He's the host of Sports on Tap. I'm not sure if you've come across him yet, but he's based right around the greater Cleveland area as well. But, he said, all right, ask John if he thinks that the Cleveland Indians did enough in the offseason to win the Central. Obviously, it's a tough division. Obviously, our lack of consistent hitting really handcuffed us last year. What did you see in the offseason moves and maybe some of the people working their way up through the farm system?
They were a little bit more prudent in making select moves this offseason. they didn't try to go out and do what they did 4 years ago when they got Bourne and Swisher, and we saw how that kind of worked out.
Yeah.
They really are banking on some of these younger talents just to kind of work their way up. They're not in a rush for Frazier and Zimmer, those two kids. So take your time, enjoy yourself down in the minors, and your day will come. So they're kind of plugging in veteran guys like Napoli, and then you've got Uribe is going to play a lot of third base this year, and a real mix and match thing out in the outfield now. You got Rajay Davis out there. Of course, you had the situation with Abraham Almonte and the PEDs, and everybody's waiting for Michael Brantley, who, when he's healthy, is one of the most consistent, solid, real set your watch to types of players. And made so did they do enough? I think I like their pitching staff. I mean, their top three is really a nice top three, and Cody Anderson, I think, is going to be one of those kids you're just going to have to keep your eye on. I think 2 years from now, people will be saying this is one of the better pitchers, one of the guys that's moved up in the rotation for his particular team. I like what he does, how he goes about his business. And, the bullpen they seem to always do a fairly good job of piecing it together. And one of the keys to how they've done well, I think, is Terry knows how to use it. And Terry's really good at having the guts and the instincts to do what he does each and every night in putting guys out there. But he's doing what you're seeing more and more in baseball. You're just having pitching staffs of massive numbers. I mean, you could almost fill a whole bus with the bullpen. There's so many people in it, but yet they all seem to get used in one way, shape, or form, and he's always tinkering with it. I think it all comes down, Guy. If they don't have a better than average, better than 500 April, then we'll be singing the same song like, it's great that you guys played great in June, July, August, and September, but where the heck were you in April and early parts of May? So it's the biggest key for this team. And Terry knows it. He understands it. He doesn't want to beat people over the head with that facet of his team. But if they get off to a good start, they're going to be in the conversation, because there's going to be nights where they might not be getting the hitting, and they don't have any big bopper that people really are afraid of that alters is like a seismic shift in their lineup that makes everybody else better, per se.
Right.
And they're counting on a lot of these guys bouncing back and have better years. Santana would be a guy that you would think about that you want to see have a good year. Of course, we're not going to see Lonnie for a little while because of his wrist, but you'd want to see him more consistent at the plate. You got better defense. I think what everybody up here wants to see is a full year of Francisco. Just what is this kid capable of doing? Will he have enough stamina and power and reserves in him to put up solid numbers from April all the way through the regular season ending? And I think that's going to be one of the fun parts about watching this team, seeing what Frankie does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you got to pick the big ticket item, you have maybe Francisco on one side, and then of course you got Corey Kluber on the other side. Final question on the Indians, and we'll bounce over to the Cavs here. So we only have it for a few minutes, but Lindor, he's obviously the draw. He's the young talent. He's you put so much pressure, or at least hopes and expectations onto the shoulders, and say, hey, please grow into a player that we can watch for a decade and just crush it. Please be a cornerstone. Right. And that's really what Corey Kluber has grown into. And I wanted to ask you talk about Cody Anderson, and I mean, you could go down the lineup with Carrasco and a few of these other guys. How much of having Corey Kluber around as a mentor, as far as work ethic and consistency and demeanor and tone, you've seen so many teams over the years, John.
Right.
Is it important to have a leader like Kluber?
Well, I think you can go back to, you remember when the Indians had, I think it was Kevin Millwood for a short period of time.
I brought him up on my show yesterday, actually. I was talking about the 4 or 5 rotation pitchers, like the Dave Burba, the Kevin Millwood, some of those players, the Terry Mulholland or Paul Bird, the guys that come in and they do good enough at the back of the rotation just to help you, They
do, and then I think what was his his strength here was his his influence on some of the some of the younger pitchers who kind of learned how to pitch and be professional and to be a bulldog and all those kinds of things. I think that's the type of guy that you want on your staff. Now, Corey is not demonstrative. We know the jokes about the Klubot and what have you. But he does have a real good personality, and he is exceptionally loved by his teammates. And I think they just see him just going out there, and he is so, you watch him pitch day in and day out, and he looks so much the same, and his routine is so strict, and he adheres to it, and he proves it, on the mound every time he's out there. And I think that's a great example. And of course, the unsung person of this whole deal, and you probably spoke about him, is Mickey. I mean, this the manager somewhere, or maybe he's just one of those guys that is just like a pitcher whisperer kind of guy, and he's so good at that, and he knows that that's his calling, and he continues to ply his trade in that position. He's just a very good pitching coach. I think he's worked wonders for a lot of these guys. I'm curious to see what Bauer does. I really want to know this experiment, or whatever they want to call this, what the end result will be. If his future is in the pen, or if this is just another way of getting to him. I don't know the exact motivation for what they did with Trevor, but he has come along. Is how he deals with teammates and how he reacts to Tito and the Callaway and those people in the coaching staff. So I'm really curious to see what he can do, because he's got such an assortment of ways to get people out. You just want to see this kid have a shot and then make the best of it.
What is your gut instinct on that? You think it's a motivational thing, or just he got outpitched by we're just that stacked that deep? If you had to just guess.
I think it's more so than anything else, it's a product of them being very well served by their starting pitching, and so that's the way I'm looking at it. Because it's curious in one way, because he is, as you guys know, as everybody knows, he's just not the greatest starter. He gets his act together by the second time around through the lineup.
Yeah. And
initially he has some problems. So you're thinking, okay, now a guy who has problems initially starting a game, now you're going to put him out there when he hasn't been in the game for a while and is going, first chance, go all out. What are you going to get from that? I think they tried something similar. I don't know if it was, now my brain my senioritis is catching up to me, but, Carlos Carrasco, kind of, had a come to Jesus moment or moments in his development, and he certainly has bounced to the good side because of, things that Tito and company did to him. So this could be just one of those things to try to reach him a little bit more, get him to buckle down more. I don't know. I just know that he has opened up how he's dealt with people. He's opened up how he's with the coaching staff, and so I know they've made progress with him. But it could be a sign of the fact that they just have really strong starting pitching staff, and they like him and they want to be able to use him. I mean, look what they did with Tomlin. Tomlin is the biggest, greatest story, I think, when you consider he had. I wrote him off last year. I don't know if you guys did. When he had to go away for a while.
Yeah,
I literally wrote him off. I thought you're not going to see him the rest of this year, and then he goes out and has a tremendous month of September, and now he's your number 5 starter. So. Wonders never cease, so we'll see what happens with Trevor.
What was he, 7-2 last year? And if you doubled that for a full season, you're talking 14-4 or something like that. Just if you can extrapolate the stats, you go, this guy might have what it takes too. So if that is the case with Bauer, if that is the case with our entire lineup, our pitching rotation top to bottom and deep into the bullpen, hey, that's a problem I'm okay having. John Telich is on Twitter. He's at JohnTelich8. Make sure that you follow him. And real quick before we let you go, the Cleveland Cavaliers are gearing gearing up for another run toward a championship. It really is championship or bust. I mean, we could go any number of angles here, but I know it's only just another minute or two we have with you. So who would you say the key players for the Cavs are as we go through the Eastern Conference? Because it's going to be hard. I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch and start thinking about Golden State because, after what they're doing, who knows if they're going to get the record and get bounced out by the Spurs, who are almost equally as good. So,
Yeah, it's really crazy to try to prognosticate what's going to happen. I know the Cavs are clearing away the best team in the East, and there's a lot of factors that Toronto's dealing with now. Kyle Lowry's not 100%. He's got problems with the elbow, and there's issues, in Atlanta and so on and so forth. So I don't anticipate that much of a different run through the East this year than what we saw last year. So I think you can safely stamp the Cavs ticket the finals. And I don't know. I mean, obviously the greatest series will be the Western Conference Final between the Spurs and Golden State. And so what's going to happen beyond that? Will the winner emerge bloodied and beaten and on their last leg because they were in such a war with the other one? Or will one of them, go through that series and be fresh and ready to face the Cavs in the finals? I don't know what's really going to happen. I know this. If you ever get a chance, I know if you listen to a lot of podcasts and what have you, listen to Richard Deitch from SI Media Podcast. He did a thing with Hubie about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and Hubie Brown broke down what you have to do to try to stop Steph and Golden State, and I found it fascinating. And I remember listening to it saying, the Cavs did do that for about a couple of games.
But they were running on empty. They were running on empty. All their players were injured, and Dellavedova gave everything he had, and
Delly was leaking coffee and out of his veins and stuff. So I don't know what the answer is, but Steph is so unconventional because he can kill you from beyond. He doesn't shoot from 23 feet. He shoots from 27, 28, and you just can't defense. I mean, you can have some way out there on him, and then he'll burn you off the dribble and score, from just 23 feet or 19 feet or whatever. They're just a phenomenal basketball team, and I said earlier in the year and midway through the year and even approaching now, I'm still not confident that the Cavs at 100% and the Spurs the Warriors at 100%, that the Cavs can beat them 4 out of 7, especially with the home court being, at the Oracle.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting because if you would imagine if the Cavaliers had won last year, for example, and the Warriors were this young, upcoming team but something to prove, it totally changes the dynamic of if you met in the finals versus now they're the reigning champions and they got this big bravado and swagger. It totally shifted what that could have turned into.
It did. It came down to that first game. They were so the Cavs were so close to winning that game, and Kyrie goes down. And the biggest thing I want to see is just. There's been more and more talk about, when you got the big three out there's not enough basketballs, and they kind of slow down, they get clogged up, and this, that, and the other. And I think there is some merit to that, but that means that if you're going to see various stages of the games, just LeBron and Kyrie together, or let's say Kyrie and K-Love while LeBron's getting a breather, or whatever the combinations may be, it's going to take those guys that were peripheral players last year who were thrust into big roles in the finals because of all the injuries. I'm talking about JR, Shump, those types of individuals. This year you could maybe put Channing Frye into that mix. They are going to have to play way out of their heads and be consistent through a full 7-game series in order for the Cavs to beat Golden State, I think.
Yeah, that's very true. This might be one of the best. Would you say this is the best chance that Cleveland has had to win a championship since? When would you? This Cleveland team, because obviously the Warriors are a juggernaut, but what is the best other team you've seen? Was it be the 97, 95 Indians? How far back would you have to go? Bernie?
I would have said. Nobody would have said the 97 Indians because they kind of weren't worth that much as the season was going on, and they kind of caught their stride and got their mojo. And Marquise Grissom was a big factor in that. So you didn't really think about them. With the '95 Indians, yeah, they were a slow pitch softball team and knocking it out of the park every night, but you still knew it was about pitching, and you knew that eventually they're going to see a team that could stymie their bats, and we all know that's exactly what happened, at least when it needed to be done in Game 6 there down at Atlanta.
Yeah.
I might say, teams that had an opportunity. One of those Browns teams had a chance. One of those, the teams that went to the AFC, whether it was the drive or the fumble year, those guys had a good mojo to them and good opportunity. And I still think going back to right before Ronnie Harper was traded for Danny Ferry, I would say those Cavs teams had as good a shot to win one sometime than any of the odd years here in Cleveland.
Yeah,
so they were just a absolutely splendid basketball team to watch. And yes, the emergence of Michael and the Bulls was coinciding with the Cavs' emerging greatness, but they lost something when they traded Ronnie and they got in then Danny Ferry, and we all know the story and behind it and all that. But they lost a lot of what they had. They still were a very good team in the ensuing years, but by the time Michael got his mojo and hit that shot, they were off and running. And then you were always looking at year after year either they or the bad boys being the people that blocked you from getting to the finals. And
and that's
basically what happened for years.
And you think about a great Cleveland team, but you have to go up against that juggernaut, just that absolute machine of Atlanta pitching with the Maddox, the Smoltz, the Glavine, and you go, any other year, any other team, why do we have to go through this? And a lot of people are saying that this year with the Cavs and the Warriors over there. But I'm telling you, I really think, especially if they pull off getting the record, I think the Warriors are going to be primed for an upset, and I think the Spurs are just licking their chops. I got to be honest about that.
They are.
So we'll see how it goes.
I agree.
This is my favorite time of the basketball year. Everything finally starts to count, and you see the teams start to rev up their game, and this is what I wait all year long for. I really feel like this season just takes forever to get to when it matters, and I'm just thankful it's here.
In literally in 2 weeks from now, we'll be sitting back talking about, even in the early rounds, the many chess matches that are going on, and the adjustments and who's been contributing the most and who's going to help out LeBron in this respect, and can they get LeBron a little bit of time off while they're blowing out these teams in the early rounds, that sort of stuff. That's the fun part. I love NBA playoff basketball because, as you mentioned, the regular season's too long and it seems so meaningless, and many back-to-backs and 4 games in 5 nights and all that sort of stuff. Now you get to the point where you play a game, then you got a day or two off. You play a game, so everybody comes to the arena fresh, and they know each other like the back of their hand. And the coaching is, every change is more minute, more crystallized. I mean, we certainly saw that last year with the amount of attention on what David Blatt was doing. Very curious to see how young Mr. Lou performs in the postseason with more scrutiny and more cards on the table. It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And Mr. Lou, he's actually had some people question, why you keep going with so many rotations? Why do you keep mixing it up? Why aren't you finding any rhythm or consistency? And it might be like you said, John. It might be because there's going to be opportunities to get Kyrie with Love and get LBJ over with, and mix up the lineups based on different scenarios. And you got to get a little practice with the different players playing that. And maybe, we took a few lumps and lost a few weird games toward the end of the season, and people are writing us off. Oh, they don't have what it takes. But you know what? It doesn't matter what happens in late March. What happens, that starts to count right about now. And so, yes, it's a glorious time for sports. Baseball springs eternal. Basketball gears up for everything, taking on a totally different tone. And it's just a wonderful time to bring you back in for the preseason show for the Indians and the postseason show for the Cavaliers. So, John Telich, once again, as always, good friend of the show. We always appreciate your time. And you have any final words on your way out the door, sir?
Hey, just enjoy that gorgeous weather out there because you know it's not the same here.
I just can't believe it. We get so spoiled, John. We get so spoiled. I saw something on Twitter, on Facebook the other day, and they showed me, oh yeah, the delays and the traffic, and they showed me snow. I said, wait a minute. It's like 80 degrees. You're serious? It's snowing in Ohio? You live in this bubble and you totally forget it. And then, your season opener is spoiled by weather today. So I will enjoy the weather for sure. And I'll tell you what, I will be sure to hit you up let's just say if and when the Cavaliers celebrate and have that title parade down the middle of downtown. Does that work for you?
I may have a few words to say when that happens. You betcha.
All right. Well, John, thanks again for your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Talk to you later.
There he goes, everybody. John Telich. Just a great guy. You grow up watching these guys, and they just continue. They have just a solid career. Okay, we could say that about LeBron James, but I'm talking about John Telich. Just a really great guy, a wealth of all Cleveland sports information. Just love that. Oh, I'll never forget that story he told about being in the locker room in '97 with the Marlins. And they taped up the locker room with plastic, and they wheeled in the champagne and the trophy, and then when the Indians let it slip away, they had to take the plastic down and take the champagne and the trophies away, and he said that was so surreal. I can't say that's one of my favorite stories, but it's one of the most memorable stories I've ever heard when it comes to Cleveland sports, because this show, right here, everybody, this show is called The Unhappy Hour. Because, hey, let's face it, in the past 4+ decades, you got to go back to 1964 to find a Cleveland Browns championship. To paraphrase Mike Polk Jr., it is statistically more unlikely that you can be this consistently bad than it would be for you to accidentally, occasionally be good. The probability is staggering. So, hey, thanks to John for joining us. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's at John Telich. That's Telich, the number 8, at John Telich 8. And my name's Brian Engelman. I want to thank you for listening. Subscribe, youtube.com/The New American Media. And everything else you're going to need is at thenewamericanmedia.com, where you click play to listen live, the Facebook feed, the Twitter feed. Go Indians, go Cavs. I'll talk to you again soon. Take care. Peace.
And this is John B. Wells reminding you that not only is Brian Engelman a cool guy, and not only is the NewAmericanMedia.com a very cool platform, but here's a cool idea for you, too. Are you alone? Not really. Do you like dogs? Do you like cats? You do. Of course you do. Everybody does. One or the other, maybe even both. There are a lot of dogs and cats that are at shelters right now, and if somebody doesn't take them home, they're going to wind up euthanized. That's a nice way of saying they're going to be killed, because there's simply not enough room. I guarantee it, the best dogs and the best cats, the best pets, come from shelters. There's something about dogs and cats. They know. They know where they are. You walk through one of them, and certainly at least one is going to look at you and go, I wish you'd take me home. I'm in hell. Please take me out of here. It'll be the best thing that you ever did for your soul. You'll feel good about it. And not only that, but you have a friend for life. Doesn't matter if you got money, you don't have money. What doesn't make any difference to a dog or cat. All they need is the sound of your voice and maybe even the stroke of your hand, and they're fine. Maybe a little food every once in a while. The sweetest sound that those pets ever hear is your voice. Think it over and adopt a cat or a dog from a local shelter today. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did.